Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, we're moving into a time with social media and now the advent of AI where I feel like bad ideas are going to have the ability to spread and cause some literal damage in like record time because people can throw things out there and be unintentionally obtuse about stuff, or they can have it misused by people for the intent of power or whatever. I think there's some real dangers with the way the information is being tossed around and confused. And I'm a little bit uncertain about where it's going to go. I've always had this like holding on tenaciously faith in humanity as a whole that will pull through, but I'm a little worried because I'm seeing the speed with which it's affecting our politics and our wars and everything under the sun, including our mental states, like with people getting on here and spending 8 to 10 hours a day arguing about something so ridiculous
I
and
feel like
easy
that.
to dismiss. And I'm like,
Why?
what are we really facing?
Not to
Why are
be
you?
too real quick, not to be too ageist, but the people I see falling for dumb internet stuff tend to be people that do not have good like internet or technology literacy, whereas the group that has grown up with this and it's been part of their, you know, like literally part of their life, their whole life, aren't as susceptible to it. So that makes me kind of feel more optimistic about the future than pessimistic.
Why are you afraid of AI? Like, I work for an AI company. Like,
I'm not.
no, 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 not you.
No, maybe.
Because I have a feeling that it's going to quickly change, if nothing else, at least the kinds of content that we're fed because of the way that you can create AI related content. And we are addicted to things like outrage and like what happened with Microsoft's AI, why they had to shut it down within a couple of weeks. That's a small scale, simple explanation of kind of some of the bigger scope things that I'm perceiving coming, but I don't know what all is going to happen. And I do have a kind of a metaphysical idea about how consciousness can change reality and what it might do to the way that we perceive our realities. But that's a little bit out in the weeds for what I'm going to talk about here with you guys. You guys are a little more scientific based. So I really
Mach-
just think that it has the potential to change people's minds on a large scale quickly.
machine learning
Because,
is based on what we put out into the world. Like, we are
right,
creating it. So how
right.
is it going
And
to
that's
change
dangerous
our perception of reality? Like, it
because
literally is, it's interpreting our reality. Like,
it
it's not
promotes it.
changing it.
Right. It promotes it and it proliferates it. So it gets it out to more minds quicker, just like
The
whatever
internet
political side
exists
you
for
may believe in.
everybody. We're all on it. We're currently
Right.
on an app that literally, like, we spend hours and hours and hours on
Right. That's
every
my
single
point.
day.
That's my point. And I think it's getting more
AI
and
is
more.
not going to change. AI is not going to change that.
I think it's going to speed it up.
This is just a road to progress. Like, it's,
It
yeah,
might
it's
be
different. It's different than
just
what we have had in the past. But like,
splitting the
anybody
atom
who's
was amazing.
over the age of 18 has
Right.
grown up to the point where the internet is everything to them. Like,
Splitting the atom
it's
was
just,
amazing, but it was also dangerous.
Yeah. I mean,
everything is dangerous.
Right.
uh,
So
Bear,
that's why
could
I said I'm worried.
clarify something just real quick? I just wanted to ask you, when you say AI, I was just going to say, could you clarify, like, do you mean AI as in, like, quote unquote, self learning, or do you mean kind of like, Be Better brought up the machine learning where it's more so dependent on outside input rather than, building its own database, quote unquote?
I wouldn't
Oh,
even,
Like, what are you referring to, I guess, is the question.
yeah,
right.
but if I can put a definition in it,
Yeah, for
AI
sure.
is
Probably better than
AI
I.
AI is literally a marketing term that people use. Artificial intelligence, it doesn't actually exist. Machine learning is what AI is, but AI is a better marketing term.
Yeah, because
Right.
actual AI, I was gonna say, as far as I knew, didn't actually, like, we're not there yet.
It,
But
it,
Yeah.
it
yeah,
it
I
it
don't
doesn't
know.
exist. It doesn't exist. It's a
I don't
I,
myth.
understand the worry about machine learning either when we've had it for over a decade now. We've had it for over 10 years.
Exactly.
well, like I said, if you look at what's happening in our politics and the way people can get whipped into a frenzy over nothing real quick, and people talk about whether or not we should or shouldn't control certain speech or certain Google search terms or whatever, and then you apply something that adds that knowledge to a much bigger base, much quicker, without any kind of restraint. I think everybody's concerned about it on one level or the other. There's just people who are involved in the industry that don't want you to be concerned because that's their bread and butter.
I
I
have a
don't see how
totally,
AI is the main
I,
factor of that influence, though.
I have a totally opposing point of view to all of this, if I may.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure.
I think we've actually lived through the tectonic earthquake of false information and not knowing what was real and everybody believing everything and conspiracy theories. I think we saw it happen. And I think there's actually an aptitude, social aptitude of wariness and not unwillingness to just jump on board the next thing. I actually think that there's been a shift in that we've all lived through, and I think that much of it's in the rearview mirror, and I don't think it's going to continue to get worse. I think it's actually, I think there's an aptitude that we have that we didn't have 5 years ago.
I
I
think
think
that's
I think you're giving too much, like, you and your circle probably agree with that. And like I agree with you. I think the people that I surround myself with do have like this cognizance where we're like, no, that's probably not real, but I don't think that exists for everybody.
I
Yeah,
mean
and I hold on to that hope with you. I definitely want to believe that humanity is robust enough and that people are still essentially good enough that they will find their way through. And just as I said earlier, splitting of the atom was great and destructive in equal measure in some ways, but the good ended up washing out to be great. But the bad was really bad. So I'm just
But the
nervous
split,
about what could come of this.
but here we are 50 years later, and yes, we came close to the brink, but we did not push those buttons, and we
No,
got through
but
a kind
it
of
was bad
tectonic
was still bad
shift
enough.
in.
What I'm saying.
So I'm
Did
gonna.
we not push the button? Like I feel like some pretty bad shit has happened in,
No,
like
Right.
the
Truman
last.
pushed a couple of buttons,
That's
Yeah.
what I'm
but
saying. Bad was bad enough, even if it was only that bad then. It was still bad enough that I probably wouldn't choose it again. I'd try
Mhm.
to find a way around it.
okay, I'm gonna interject here because I think Bear and Be Better, you're kind of, I think you kind of talked past each other a little bit. So I think what Bear is talking about is, so like, how does the information that I see online get to me? It gets to me through algorithms, right? And we can call that artificial intelligence, or we can just call it algorithms or whatever. But from what I've heard, his worry is that that actually does have the potential to change human behavior. And I absolutely agree with that. Now, there's a person behind the programming and the algorithm or whatever, but they don't necessarily intentionally set out for specific things to happen. Like they may do things like, well, we're gonna push these types of keywords more. We're gonna repress these types of keywords more, or whatever. But it's an extremely chaotic system with too many variables, and there's fundamentally an enormous amount of uncertainty in what the outcomes are. And I think we have seen all kinds of things pop up that could never have happened unless it was for that, like January 6th, or like the guy that went into the pizza parlor in California and stuff like that.
So, are you? Is there a question here? Like I understand what you're saying and I get that, but like,
No, it wasn't really a question.
But
I
I
was
sort of
trying
wonder
to
if that
clarify the
isn't,
point.
we're not describing the storm. And of course, you never hindsight and all that, and we won't know. But 10 years from now, I think it might be possible. And I'm not typically, just optimistic by nature at all. But I think it's possible 10 years from now, we look back at this bizarre, chaotic, believe anything conspiracy theory moment in American history that evolves to a more cogent, um, kind of militant need to know the truth and not accept what just comes across the algorithm on your feed. I don't know. I'm optimistic in that way.
I mean
I
the
want
thing
same.
about like when you're talking about these social media algorithms though is it's normally like obviously 99% of the time, other than like when a new fresh user is on there, 99% of the time it's just based on input. Like if you, I don't know, if you
Exactly.
were to hover on a video for a little longer and give it more watch time, they might recommend you more of that creator or more things in that hashtag. And it's almost entirely user based. And
right, but that
I
doesn't
don't,
give me
I would
any
assume
boost.
that like TikTok is probably similar to Instagram and where their algorithm isn't static. It's constantly changing because it's constantly getting new information coming in. And I think it really comes down to, unless it's being influenced by politics externally, a lot of the time the app just shows you what you want to see, and sometimes that can be bad. You know, like for example, flat Earth. If that's what you're into, you're just gonna see a bunch of that, just a bunch of stuff to reaffirm your belief, whether or not it's true. Kind of becomes, it becomes like it goes on the back burner, and the only thing that matters at that point is kind of confirmation bias. And I
Well,
could see that being a problem, but then again, that's still just user driven.
The,
that's a
the
great
the
example of my
algorithms
point.
the algorithms are completely based on what you're inputting into them. So
Right.
like
That's
what you said. So like literally like you're just existing in this void that you have
right.
created for yourself, which
And that's my point.
definitely can be a problem, but like you're going to think those things anyway. So like the algorithm just reaffirming them is not going to change anything.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
my point.
except when does an agent decide what they're interested in?
Yes.
A lot of times it only happens because some information was put in front of you, and it doesn't mean that somebody meant to do that. It just means that it was there and something you never would have had any personal interest in whatsoever serendipitously ended up there, and then you end up in a certain place later on.
Well,
Like if we
just
were honest with ourselves, I think we would understand that our preferences and what we like and what we value, a huge amount of it had nothing to do with any kind of real
Oh yeah.
major thought or input that we gave it. It just kind of ended up
That is
happening in a way.
No,
that's
I
I
entirely
don't,
disagree.
I
how
don't,
my
I don't
page
think you
came to
feel that way.
exist.
I don't. Everything I know about you says you don't feel that way. That you're not victimized by that.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like Peterson, in my case especially, is absolutely right. I mean, I didn't know flat earthers even existed, back in March. And here
Really?
I am now. I have a whole page dedicated to debunking them. I didn't know they existed, but once I saw the videos, well, it just started recommending me more and more and more. And obviously, it was my choice. I was sitting there watching the videos, arguing in the comments. I boosted it myself. But I don't know. It's one of those
I
things
can't
where I didn't
not
pick it.
I
It's like
cannot
it picked
believe
me almost.
I cannot believe that you didn't know they existed.
I didn't know they existed
I,
either.
I thought I thought it was a
What?
I
joke.
didn't even.
I thought they
I,
were
I,
just
I
I
don't actually,
pranking.
I don't actually believe they exist in the numbers they exist. I think it's a bit
It's
of a
actually
ruse.
it's actually insane. Like it's actually insane.
Yeah.
It's the same and like the number of people that believe in the flat earth theory are the same people who believe JFK Jr. is going to be Trump's new vice president.
Well,
They are the
that
same.
You're
There's
looking at
pretty
about
let
the
me
good
same
expound
amount
a
of
group
little
of
bit.
overlap
people.
there.
Hold on a sec. Let me expound a little bit because I've spent the past 6 months visiting their sites and having conversations with them because the
Dude.
phenomenon blew my mind.
Oh,
But
sorry.
the absolute absurdity of it and the vastness of the different belief systems that find themselves home in then those conversations just blew my mind that it's getting as big as it is.
Yeah.
You guys keep saying it's not dangerous because it's just fed by what you like. That's the point.
no,
These
it's
algorithms are fed and respond by what you like, and I'm seeing more and more the kinds of people that are getting hooked up with these kinds of belief systems have some very dangerous thought processes, up to and including germs don't exist. So stop taking your medicine. Like really
and
dangerous.
even
Do you
I've
know the literacy
seen
rate
even
in
worse.
America?
Hold on, I've seen
What?
even worse with it. And I heard some. I don't know who said it, but he said most of the people that fall into these type of conspiracies, it always leads back to anti-Semitism.
Correct.
And
Well,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
looked
pretty
As a
into
much.
it.
Jew,
A lot of it
I'm
does.
Jewish. I'm
I
Jewish.
looked into it, and holy shit, most of it does.
Yeah,
A
I
lot of
finish
it
everything,
really
finish
do.
finish your sentence about being Jewish.
everything leads back to being anti-Semitic. All of the conspiracy theories are anti-Semitism. All of them.
I met
Like
a bunch in there that weren't anti-Semitic for the most part, but I did hear some people that popped in that had some differing and negative views about various groups. So that's my point. It's like I'm
I
not
mean,
as scared of I think Aaron was saying he thought that we've already been through the storm. I think that was a preview. I think that was preparatory. I don't think we've seen the storm yet.
no,
I
we
think we're
haven't.
getting
We
ready for
haven't.
what
It's gonna get
like
worse.
the
All right.
chaotic. Exactly. And I
Let
think
me.
that some of these
Right.
accesses to information that can be twisted and contorted and tossed around at light speed is a firestorm
So,
they're playing with that they're not really ready for.
do you think it would be a better idea to program some type of algorithm that would
No.
push
So
information?
no.
Well, I'm saying
Let
like
him
it would
talk.
push
Sorry.
the opposite narrative, like
No.
facts and evidence that would be in like that is against what they have already set or ingrained in their ideology or whatever,
No,
their
and I'm
worldview.
not trying to, I wasn't trying to interrupt. I'm sorry. I was just trying to get past that because I knew where he was going with it. I don't believe that censorship is the answer. I believe promoting of correct information and what you want to see in the world
No, no,
is.
no. That's what I
But
mean. I mean
that's the
having the.
point. That's the point
That's
of
what
it.
I mean. Not
Creating a
censoring.
feed, creating an algorithm that actually tells the truth. Is that what you're
I would
saying?
No, I would say create people going out into these places and utilizing the tool of social media to spread wisdom and knowledge and truth, but not necessarily fight the negative truth. That's what I'm trying to get back to is my original point that arguing with people who have false information, if you slip up in the slightest and you're somewhat educated or even excessively educated, you now become a mouthpiece for their argument. Because if you messed up in one slight bit because you're human, you misread
Yeah.
something, you misspoke,
Oh, that's going
that's what I was
way
trying to
back.
come back to was my original point why I entered,
Right.
because I think we saw that happen here today with that gentleman. He was reading from a published paper that was peer reviewed, and he was standing firm in what he considered to be knowledge. And he was right to do so. But as the host was trying to point out, the knowledge was wrong. So instead of trying to fight them and create scenarios where people can misspeak and get feelings wrapped up and give people the tools to have misunderstandings about reality, instead, get on here and be the change you want to see in the world and promote good information. Not fight bad, but promote good.
That's what
Yeah.
I do.
Well, I mean, I
I want.
think
Okay.
Literally my whole
go ahead,
platform.
Peterson. Yeah, and I know you wanted to say something, Peterson. Go ahead, my bad.
So I was going to go to get away from that and go to what I was talking about last,
Yeah,
which
for
is
sure.
like the idea of like our preferences and decision making. Like what does that stem from, and to what degree is it like decided almost for us or serendipitously put in place for us, and we make the decision, but certain outcomes could never have happened if it weren't for whatever was put in front of us, right? We could
Uh,
probably all think of an example like this. So I'll give you one for me. I am a diehard Dallas Mavericks fan. Okay, why? I'm from South Dakota. Most people, the sports team that they will root for, and they'll believe the refs are working against them, conspiring against them, and they'll believe every dumb thing because they bleed whatever color their sports team is. It's just a consequence of geography where they're from. So I'm from South Dakota, so we don't have any professional basketball teams. It was literally in middle school. We got these like Sports Illustrated for Kids magazines, and Dirk Nowitzki was on the cover of one of them, and it was tastefully done. It was artful. The picture was cool. He seemed like a cool dude, and I just said I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan, right? So a huge part of my life is because of that completely random event, right? So like those kinds of things happen with like, I mean, this is why advertising works. Like you cannot possibly give me a rational reason why any human being should buy anything from Gwyneth Paltrow's website Goop, right? It
Okay,
is
you just went
a
way up in my
hundred
rating.
100% impossible, right? But
She's
it works, and she makes huge amounts of money on it, right? Because we're all dumb enough to buy into that kind of crap only because it's told to us, right? Humans are depressingly predictable in some ways.
I
Yeah.
will say though, the thing that stands out there is I mean, if you're on TikTok, when you scroll, you know, when you're on the For You page, I mean, there has to be a video, and that's the thing. If it's just whatever videos are, you know, happen to be trending on the For You page at that moment, if one of them happens to be, you know, pro something you're against, or even pro something you're for, I mean, you could almost say, if it weren't for, you know, data mining from like other websites, you could say it's coincidence. Like if you were to come in on a fresh account, fresh phone, not linked, it seems like I don't know. I don't know if you could necessarily say they pushed anything to you, or if you just happened upon something. Because that's the hard
I can
thing.
give you an
Regardless, there
example.
has to be a video.
I can give you an example because it happened today.
Yeah, for sure.
My FYP is completely flooded with that stupid anime magna filter thing, right? Where people are trying to make it look weird, you know?
Oh yes.
And
is it
it's
Capcom or
why am I seeing
something?
that? Because I just saw it for a second and I was like, what the heck is this? And it was just like catchy, and now it's just over and over and over again. Now I don't think I'm gonna start watching Gundam or Full Metal Alchemist or anything, but I very well could. because that's why I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan, right? So it's a thing, and it does exist. I think I'm gonna have to go Mavericks fan, right? So it's a thing, and it does exist. I think I'm gonna have to go though, unfortunately. But this was a really cool conversation.
I just want to follow up by saying I think that
Closing
we're living
thoughts.
in a kind of .com bubble, and I think we won't know what this is for a while. But I actually really feel strongly that it has its own shelf life, and that it won't be the driving force in social change in 10 years from now, in 5 years from now. I have a sense of its brevity. I really, and
I hope
people's
so.
boredom.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that there are some like significant changes that happen. My hope is that like teaching people like computer, like where I'm from in the Midwest, hunting is like culturally a very relevant thing. So like people like take their children out and teach them like the correct way to like safely use a firearm and what you should do and what you shouldn't do and stuff like that. And in other cultures, they probably have, it's just like things that they just universally regard as being like really important. And I'm hoping that promoting that becomes important, and also like the idea of seeing teenagers smoke like outside of a school. Hopefully that would like make everybody recoil. I'm hoping that children middle school age or younger having phones and electronic device. I'm hoping like in 10 years from now we're going to look back and be like, oh, that was like when we told pregnant women to smoke to try to relax. That was the worst idea ever. I'm hoping something like that happens, because right now we're in the wild, wild west.
I know you've got to go. I just want to say I've seen the trend. I started on here to watch a student who was lip syncing and getting famous on TikTok. There's so much little lip syncing and dancing. It's gone through this kind of trolled, angry Jesus Christ thing, and I'm watching it evolve into these cogent lives like you host, becoming more and more the day. There's an evolution here that I think is promising. That's just my 2 cents.
Right. And before I go, thank you very much for letting me come and have this conversation with you all. I appreciate the open-mindedness and the allowing of me to spread my confusion a little bit, but also ask some questions. And I just want to encourage everybody to consider, like what I was saying, just like you're talking about, the times when we used to think smoking was cool. All of the things we did to try to combat it didn't do very good until we started teaching people the honest information instead of trying to scare them. And I think we've got an amazing tool in our hands to literally be the change we want to see, at least in our own personal world and algorithm world. And any chance you get to put out the good you want in your life, watch it come back in spades on this app.
Very,
Really
very
awesome.
well said. Very well
if,
said.
if you